Let's go ahead and take a look at Hallar, the Firefletcher. So we have Hallar, that's going to be one color, this red and a green. Trample, whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, put a +1 counter on Hallar, then Hallar deals damage equal to the number of +1 counters on it to each opponent. Now there's two major themes that we're running within this deck, and that's going to be ways to get tokens, get +1 counters onto Hallar as quickly as possible. And we're also running a lot of kicker spells that either have really cheap kicker activations. When I first built Hallar, I put a ton of kicker spells in there, and I really found quickly that some of the spells that have a really high kicker cost, it's really hard to get Hallar going. And it's just kind of one of those, if you're going to be building Hallar, you definitely want to keep into account the converted mana cost of the card that you're going to be trying to cast with Hallar. If you've got a lot of stuff that may initially cost 4 or 5, and then another kicker of 2 or 3 or 4, you're looking at about 7, 8 mana. It's just really hard to get any sort of good damage done with really high kicker activation. So you may end up having to run a bunch of kicker spells that may not be that great. You just need to kind of view it as a just as a way to kind of get Hallar going with those +1 counters. So let's go and take a look at some of the spells that we are running in here that do have the kicker activation. We do have some stuff that allows us to kind of get that kicker cost really cheap. We have Magma Burst, Falling Timber, Goblin Barrage. They all have a kicker of at least sacrifice a land or an artifact or a goblin or 2 lands for Magma Burst's ability. These are all great spells late game. If we spent the entire game getting +1 counters on Hallar, being able to tap out for 4 mana, sacrificing 2 lands to deal that +1 counter damage to our opponent, hopefully to close it out, it's going to be really good. The best way to kind of think about Hallar is, kicker, sacrifice 2 lands. That is, you're going down on lands, but hopefully if the game's gotten to the point where you have enough counters on there, you should be able to close it out by using Magma Burst or Goblin Barrage really cheap to get those kicker activations going. Falling Timber actually works out really good in the deck. Like I said, there's a lot of turns where we're going to be setting up a lot of stuff to get those +1 counters onto Hallar. So being able to fog out your opponent for a turn is really good for the deck, and then having that kicker activation really kind of helps you push that game plan. Outside of these kicker spells with cheap kickers, we are running a few burn kicker spells in here. I'm not going to read every single card, but basically, deals some sort of damage to target creature or target player or target permanent. Burst Lightning, Shivan Fire, and then Unstable Footing. We're also running some good utility kicker spells in here. We have Wood Readers in here. It's going to enter the battlefield, draw 2 cards. We have Mold Shambler that's going to allow us to destroy target non-creature permanent. And then we have a good mana sink in Wolfbriar Elemental. Let's say that we can't get Hallar going for some reason. It's been sent back to the command zone a bunch of times. We can tap out a bunch of green mana into Wolfbriar Elemental, kind of build up a token army to start swinging in our opponent. We are running a few kicker spells in here that care about giving our creature some type of bonus. So if we can tap out for a really big Wolfbriar Elemental, we can use that to our advantage with those wolf tokens on the battlefield. We're also running Goblin Ruin Blaster. It's going to allow us to take care of a problem land if we need to go for that, and it does have a cheap kicker activation. And we're also running the Chronicler. Enters the battlefield, return target instant sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. It's going to allow us to sink some extra mana into a creature and return that card back to our hand and go for another kicker cost. Outside of these cards, we are running a few more that kind of good utility kicker stuff. We're running Overload. It's going to allow us to destroy an artifact. Savage Offense is going to allow us to give our creatures first strike and then +1/+1 until end of turn. And then Goblin Bushwhacker is going to allow us to give that +1 in haste, swinging in our opponent. We also have some good protection for Hallar. That's going to be Vines of Vastwood. Great card for the deck, especially since Hallar does have Trample. We're able to give it Hexproof essentially, and then give that +4/+4 until end of turn. And then Grow from Ashes is a great ramp spell for the deck. And the cool thing about the kicker cost is if we do cast Grow from Ashes with the kicker, it's going to have 2 basic lands enter the battlefield not tap. So it's going to allow you to still, maybe chain together another kicker spell for that turn, tapping out for a Grow from the Ashes. Outside of these kicker spells, we're running a lot of spells that allows us to put some good +1 counters onto Hallar. Increasing Savagery, Soul's Might, Blessings of Nature. These are all great ways to get a quick amount of counters onto Hallar. Soul's Might's a really good card for the deck, especially if we can sequence it to where we have a lot of mana. Maybe we tap out for a Kessig Wolf Run to kind of give it a temporary bonus to get those +1 counters on there. Really good. And I cannot tell you how good this card in the deck, Solidarity of Heroes. This has stole me a bunch of games. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see a Solidarity of Heroes win in one of my videos, but in my playtesting, Solidarity of Heroes, no matter what sort of build you're going to build with Hallar, this is pretty much an auto-include in the deck because it's going to allow you to double the amount of +1 counters on it. And we're also running Gearhulk. block. You know, enters the battlefield as a full 4 trample creature, and we can put those 4 counters onto Hallar to kind of start dealing that damage to our opponent. Some other really good cards that interact with +1 counters really good is going to be Forgotten Ancient. Whenever a player casts a spell, it's going to count towards that. It's going to be able to put a +1 counter on Forgotten Ancient. In the beginning of our upkeep, it's going to allow us to kind of shift those +1 counters around. Hardened Scale is a great early turn play. Get it down. It's going to double, amplify the tokens being put on Hallar. And the Retreat's going to give us a bonus for every time that we put a land onto the battlefield. We can either gain that life, but most of the time you'll be going for that +1 counter onto Hallar. Now, as far as the land package in here, there's actually pretty good lands that work really well with Hallar. We are running Londo War Reborn. It's going to have that graft ability. You just want to run some good stuff that just gets counters onto Hallar as quickly as possible. So having that graft off of a land is really good. Keswick Wolf Run allows us to tap out to, you know, go for some commander damage win. And then Opal Palace is going to allow Hallar to enter the battle with additional +1 counter on there. Now, I think Opal Palace is bugged on Magic Online currently. There's one playtesting game where I tapped out for an Opal Palace and it did not enter the battlefield with a +1 counter. Maybe I did it wrong or something like that, who knows, but at least keep that in mind that if you're using Opal Palace on Magic Online, I think it is currently bugged at this point right now. But if you're playing in paper, it's not bugged because you can sit there and put the +1 counter on it. We're also running Rogue's Passage. It works well with Keswick Wolf Run. It's going to allow that creature, Hallar, to swing in unblocked. And then Yavi Maya Hollow. It's so important that we have Hallar on the battlefield. So we're running Yavi Maya Hollow. It's going to allow us another opportunity to kind of regenerate Hallar, especially if our opponent's going to go for something like a board wipe. Now, outside of that stuff, we have some good utility cards for the deck that kind of work with it. We are running Scepter. With Scepter, whenever we imprint one of our kicker spells, we will be able to pay that kicker spell once we go for that activation, or at least to my understanding, the way I read it. So that's going to allow you to kind of have that repeated kicker cost. We are running Ring in here, getting an additional +1 counter on Hallar. So it's looking at haste to start swinging in. And the Strionic Resonator is going to allow us to copy that triggered ability once we cast one of those kicker spells. We're also running Canopy Cover. It's a great card for the deck. It's going to give Hallar basically flying. It can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach. And then it's also going to make it to where enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or opponents your opponents control. So this is still going to allow us to, you know, put Canopy Cover onto Hallar. It's not going to have Shroud, which would prevent us from putting some of our +1 counters onto it. And we're also running Force Adaptation. You know, let's say that we get forced down. We have the Hardened Scales on the battlefield. It's going to be 2 +1 counters per turn. And then once we start getting that mana flowing, we start running through our kicker spells, it's going to work really well with Hallar. Outside of the +1 counters and the kicker spells, we are running a very small fling package in here, which I'm not entirely sure if I still want to leave it in here or not. But there's just some games where we end up with a ton of power and toughness on Hallar. So at least running 1 or 2 of these cards is a great way to kind of just get some extra value out of your deck. We have Fling. It's going to deal damage equal to the sacrifice creature's power to target creature or player. Chandra's Ignition is going to deal damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent, which works really well with that kicker ability. And they're also running Soul's Fire. Same thing with Fling. It's going to deal damage equal to target creature or power, except we don't have to sacrifice Hallar. And that's going to be it for the deck tech. I do have 3 gameplay videos up for you right now if you want to check it out. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.